Hello, it seems to be working. Alright, this is earlier than usual, but this is actually the time I would prefer to do this, rather than so late at night. Last stream, um, I did Silent Hill 2 remake, then moved on to the comics Among the Damned and Painted Black, and then moved on to Silent Hill 3. And after Silent Hill 3, I did the ARG, the Red Reaper ARG, and also I did a short message, and that went pretty well. So today, my plan is to move on to Silent Hill 4, which will likely take a lot of time. There's many characters here, and then I could do uh, the Grinning Man. It's also just a few characters. I don't know if I do Dead Alive, but I have to see how long Silent Hill 4 takes. If I still have some time left, I can do Origins as well, which is mostly the counterparts of Silent Hill 1 characters and some off-screen characters. Alright, I think it's all set now. Also, the streams have been just fine left in the YouTube channel, so I'm pretty happy with how it has been going. Hopefully this continues, and when at some point I get a better mic or a better PC, I could try doing some other different things. I'm also planning to, when I finish the character tier list, I'm planning to move on to the location/level tier list that I also made, and then to the monster tier list, which is also a very extensive one, while the location and level one is not very long. It's just the main games. Either way, I think we're good to start. Alright, first we have our protagonist, Henry Townsend. Um, I do get that he can be bland, but I also know that he resonates a lot with many people, and he does resonate with me. He's running on no sleep, or barely any sleep. He wants to help, even though he doesn't really achieve much in the first half of the game. He really does care about Eileen. I think he's. I remember when I was getting into the fandom, I remember so many people saying that Henry was supposed to be a blank slate for people to project onto, but no one really could project anything onto him. And that has been changing in recent times. I've seen a lot of people coming out and saying that, yeah, they can actually project things onto him. They can read him a lot better. I'm not sure what has changed over time, but I'm really glad it has. So, and I really support Henry as a kind, shy, very sleep deprived character just trying to get things solved. Also, I really like there's two moments that I really like, and the first is when he meets Richard in the building world, and he stretches out his hand, and Richard rejects the handshake, and you can see how Henry gets visibly more intimidated by him as the cutscene goes. And also when he's confronting Walter in the core of room 202, and it's like the only time you see a genuine frown of anger on Henry's face. And I really like the moments. They wouldn't be anything special in any other character, but because they're on Henry, they become really memorable to me. Next is Eileen Colvin. She's smart, she's sociable, she's a great person, she's very kind, she's an archaeology student. So she probably doesn't have much money. Um, she has never, personally, she has never given me any issue with her AI. She's always been very good at combat and following me in my personal gameplay experience. I've never found her annoying either. Uh, I like that they thought she was too beautiful and cute to be realistic, so they kinda fattened up her legs, thinking it would make her less attractive, and it backfired. I think that's a funny development story. Esther, she she's just very how does she say it? Very familiar. She's not unrealistically kind. She just seems like a genuine person, and her role in the story is also pretty much couldn't go to anybody else. Also, she can sometimes notice you watching through the peephole, and I think that's a fun idea. That maybe that she doesn't actually notice you, but Henry is seeing things like that. Like it. Frank Sunderland. For this one, we are completely disregarding uh, um, character writing as a negative because this guy is S tier to me. He's just he's just so fucking weird, and he's a weirdo in the best way. He's a confused old man that maybe doesn't even care about his son James so much, but you can, it's like affect, affect, affection, his affection system or whatever is completely wired incorrectly, and I love that. He kind of tries to help. He wants to get along with his tenants, but he's just a weirdo. So people kind of suspect him, and he's not very smart either. And, and I just love him. He can sometimes just be outside your door, and he's just stands in a corner against the wall and just watches your door, doesn't barely even moves. It doesn't even look like he's breathing, and he's. I like when a character. I think his weirdness feels so earnest that I can't help but actually like him so much. So S tier. I love Frank Sunderland. Also, his internal name is Jank, and I love it. It fits in perfectly. Next up is Joseph Schreiber. Joseph, he sadly is Andrew de Salvo's model, but grayscaled and upside down. He's a very smart man, a good Christian. He really wants to help people. Uh, he, he did expose the order to the article. He exposed the wish house. He might have not completely taken down the Holy Mother, not the Holy Woman sect, but he definitely gave a very heavy blow to the Baltil and Holy Mother sects. I really like his descent into insanity, his despair theme. It's also very entertaining that he is the only ghost to retain his mind after dying in the apartment. So I like his voice actor. I I like I like how he delivers his lines. The cutscene drags on a bit too long, but I like how he does in it. I think he's S tier. Next up, the first four victims of the game. Cynthia. She was a girl living her life. Might have been stalked by the wish house since she was very young. Since Walter knows of her since she was 3. And one of the few reasonable explanations is that the cult had already picked her as a future sacrifice. Um, she's not too complex, but she's also very tragic. What else? She was nice to Walter until he creeped her out by talking too much. She doesn't seem like a person. She's a bit promiscuous, but that's not a that doesn't mean that she's a bad person. Uh, she's a bit underused. Oh, but taking into account her boss form, her ghost form, I think her intro cutscene as a ghost does bump her up to S tier. I think so. Her The way she also can either crawl on the ground very slowly or just slither across the ground like a snake. And those two moves are kind of rare, since people just tend to stun lock her and don't get to see those animations. Yeah, she can be uncomfortable, but she she doesn't really. I mean, she doesn't think you're real to begin with. She thinks you're part of her dream. I think she does well. She seems like a good person, um, who doesn't really mean ill to anyone. She just kind of enjoying herself and got killed for that. We have to have a word with her parents, though. How the hell are they letting a 13-year-old Cynthia hang out at nightclubs? That's not her fault. That's her parents' fault. Where the hell were they? Jasper Ginn, Gain. I'm not sure how his last name is pronounced. Uh, he is. I don't think he's as um, engaging as Cynthia, but he's also pretty entertaining to watch on his own accord. He knows a lot of things, but it seems that he might have some development issue. He's a stutter, and he also is very awkward socially. I would probably run away a bit from him if I found him in the forest. Um, he doesn't seem to be a bad person either, but being so into the occult, he probably could be considered an enabler of some sort. He has the incubus in his shirt. That's cool too. His ghost on fire. He has the highest resistance in the game. I think he's going into 8 tier. I think it's just weird in an off-putting way. While Frank is a weirdo in a funny, oh, this guy, he's just like that. Let him be. Way Jasper is a bit more intimidating as a weirdo, but I don't think that at his core he really thinks about how his occult interests might actually be hurting anybody. Plus, we have to take into account that he watched his two friends get killed in front of him, and the only reason he was allowed to leave was because Walter wanted to keep him for later. I think that will probably have some effect in his mind. Mm, oh, the bastard. Next up is Andrew DiSalvo. I. Mm, he is objectively a horrible person. He should be in Burning Hell, but I don't know if I dislike him as a character enough to send him to hell. I like that the passing of time has turned him into this coward, coward, balding man that can barely finish his sentences. It feels like karmic justice in a way. He's probably the least The least engaging of all four victims. We don't really get to talk to him much, and he weirds Henry out as well. I think he's a C tier. I like the karmic justice of him becoming a coward. Uh, oh, and he dies by drowning. That's a very slow and panic-inducing way to die, and also very personal, because Walter would have had to physically hold him down for that. Uh, so in a way, he had one of the worst deaths, at least psychologically. His ghost can be annoying, but he has that kind of obscure mechanic. The chanting that he does when he recites the 21 sacraments is actually an attack. And if you let him sing for too long, he deals massive damage. And I like that mechanic, as obscure and kind of bullshit that it is. I don't think it's enough to bump him up to B, but it's definitely enough to keep him above and D or E. Richard, Richard Braintree. He's also an asshole, but he's a very fun one to watch. He's definitely not a good person, even though he does have more morals than most other antagonists. Uh, very, very cool death scene. Dying electrocuted as he tries to warn Henry, even though he was mean to him before. His ghost is also the best one in the game, which alone would put him already in S tier. Uh, I like that in some rooms he can just spawn in without warning. Like he doesn't come out of the walls. He just he can just spawn in the middle of the room. I don't know where the hell the crowbar he uses came from, but I like it. And he beat the hell out of a stalker in his apartment. So that was good of him. And yeah, he good ghost, good character design, fun to watch. I like his actor. He deserves being in S tier, I think. Mm, Mini Walter. This is specifically the child manifestation that we see in the game. I think he does well in the line between cute and creepy. He's more cute than creepy, but a few of the lines can come out a little creepy, and in other instances, it kinda comes out so innocent that it loops into being creepy. Uh, I like how Henry tries to interact with him. He's surprisingly not shy at all with kids. Um, he's also very cute. I would adopt him. But is he S tier material though? I mean, oh shit, I just remembered that the game straight up shows him dying in the endings. And it's kind of messed up to see. I don't know. I don't know where to put him. S or A tier. I think. I mean, he has the story. He has the design. He has the dialogue, good scenes, and that kind of disturbing death scene. Yeah, he should be in S tier. Poor little kid. Okay, next up, the next 14 are the ghosts and other uh, Walter's victims. First up is Jimmy Stone. He was a priest of the sect of Baltiel, so he acted as executioner. And we know that he wasn't a good person. Walter killed him, kind of cowardly. He shot him in the back of the head, so he very likely wasn't, how do you say it, uh, wasn't conscious of what was going to happen. He's very much responsible for a lot of the cult's actions as a mediator between the sects. He was a feared man. Walter at least feared him. And also, his ghost has a very interesting detail, and it's that the numbers 01/21 are written on the top of his head exactly where Baltiel has numbers on his head in Silent Hill 3. He also has numbers written on his head, and I think that detail is very interesting. I think it's I don't think we see much of his direct impact through notes about him in general to put him in S tier, but I think that as a greater scope villain, he is. I'm gonna arrange him already as a high A tier, maybe behind Jody. Jasper's friends. These are Bobby Randolph and Sean Martin. Uh, Occult fans. They wanted to learn about the paranormal. Fell for a rumor about Walter studying in Pleasant River. Walter strangled them, which, along with drowning, is also a very panicky way to die. We don't know about their personality. Oh wait, no, I think we do here. We do read a couple of lines from them in the another Crimson Tome, but I don't think they coach much of a personality. It's more of their attitude towards meeting Walter. I think I think they don't even return as ghosts, and their items don't make it to Walter's other world either. So they don't have much of an impact beyond just probably messing Jasper up mentally. Uh, I'm gonna put them in C tier because I think the cult fans thing, I think it's still interesting enough. Um, Steve Garland, this is the owner of the pet shop in Building World. When Walter was a kid, he knocked over a cage with a very important cat in it, and Steve got very, very mad at him. And in his file, it's noted that Steve is not the best person towards other people. He's only nice to animals. He's also kind of weirdly dressed, so Ghost. Um, his Ghost is kind of, this is entirely anecdotal, but I think his Ghost is a bit more aggressive than other ghosts, which would fit with his characterization. I'm gonna put him in B tier. His Ghost does have a recognizable image, but overall he's not very special. Although the pet store in Building World is still kind of a memorable moment in the game. Rick Albert, this is the owner of the sports store that we also go through in Building World. He was Walter's boss, so you can kind of infer that he must be a nice guy. Um, he got killed, presumably, because he got scared of how Walter started describing his crimes so vividly. He got bludgeoned in the head with, I think it was a baseball bat. It was either a baseball bat or a golf club. Um, I think he is going to. I think he's going to be here alongside Steve, even though he doesn't have a ghost. His character kind of leaves the presence there through the sports shop, unlike Jasper's friends who don't leave anything. Oh, and yeah, kind of gets involved in the second visit to the building world. George Rosten. This was the leader of the Holy Mother sect and was the head of the witch house. So we know from that he was a terrible person already. He was directly responsible for indoctrinating Walter, so that already knocks him down morally even more. And he got killed very personally in the secret basement of the orphanage, in that little room that you unlock after pushing the wheelchair doll. It's theorized that the wheelchair doll is George. It seems to have a life of its own. Um, but he does have more of an greater scope impact. Hmm. We see and hear of him a lot less than Jimmy. I think I'll put him above Steve Garland in how he is little more interesting to think about. What was his role like? What kind of things he did as head of the Wish House? William Gregory. This is the weirdest character to me out of the 21 victims because his profile says that a middle-aged man left him a clock at his repair shop, and that night William had a dream about the building world, and that's everything we know of him. So it's so little that he should be definitely in like E or D tier, but it's so specific that I can't help but think about it. And I've theorized that the middle-aged man that left the watch at his store might be Walter's father, but that's just a hunch. I'm gonna put him below Rick Albert. He would be in C if he didn't make me think so much about what the hell his deal is. I use the twin victims here as a stand-in for Billy and Miriam Locane. I'm already in at least A tier because of the design. Um, there's something of note that Billy got killed with one or two strikes from the axe, while Miriam got completely torn apart by Walter, even though Billy is older and so kind of comparatively a bit more of a threat, as calling family and such. The fact that Walter went so violently for a little girl kind of stands out so much in this backstory. They also lived in Silent Hill, so since William Gregory was killed in Ashfield, and then the next victims are these two in Silent Hill, Walter made this whole trip about a day from somewhere in Massachusetts to Maine just to kill these two kids. It gets very messed up, even more than the rest of his weird, um, unmotivated killings. I'm gonna put them in A and not in S just because of a lack of, they were kids. They weren't going to have huge, complex stories, but they leave a very big impact. Plus the monster design. Number 10 is Eric Walsh. He was the bartender at the Southfield bar. He was let go earlier because of the killings in the area. And when he got home to his apartment, his birthday, he found a birthday party set up, but no one else in there, and then got shot in the head. So that's already a very eerie plan to die. Like you can see how Walter's killings go from, the cowardly shot in the back of the head to Jimmy Stone to setting up an entire birthday party to kill a man in his birthday when he arrives home. It gets it gets so cold at this time. It barely feels emotional for him. And I think the entire setup for his death is very memorable. His ghost also has the misfortune of having been the only one the only one Joseph pinned with a sort of obedience before the game began. Uh, he does have the exit wound of the gunshot in the back of his head. If you look at his character model, and I like when the ghosts have those little marks of how they died. He's also very fast, but in all other stats, he's kind of average. I think finding him with a sword in the middle of the abandoned birthday party is a very memorable moment. So I'm putting him in A tier. That's kind of the point where the game starts to tell you that you are not just quote unquote investigating anymore, that soon you will have to start to survive. Um, and also, it's kind of a neat bit of environmental storytelling about how Joseph already went through there. Next up is Peter Walls, number 12. Peter has a very fun gimmick in that his AI is programmed to avoid combat as soon as he starts getting attacked back. So he'll chase you for all the stairs, but if you strike him once or twice, he just cowers and floats away. And I really like that gimmick. He's just a coward. Peter was the local stoner, and I like this backstory too because he's with his friends in an alley and he sees a ladder leading into a window of the hotel, and he just says that he sees God at the top of the ladder and he climbs and disappears. That's so fucking cool. I really like how that story is described. And also, he got beaten to death. So that continues the trend of Walter getting more physical with each kill. I like his ghost. Um, I don't think he is as cool as Eric's ghost, but uh, personally, he is very memorable to me. When I think of encounters with ghosts in Silent Hill 4, uh, something that's going to come to mind is it's Peter's ghost. Number 13 is Sharon Blake. Uh, this poor ghost. She's extremely weak to everything. It's kinda sad how underpowered she is, but she makes up for it with a cool backstory. Her family got converted into the cult, and she disapproved of it. And then one day they stop coming back, so she goes to investigate. She goes to the wish house grounds and finds their graves in the cemetery that you go through in the game. And in their way back, Walter captures her and drowns her in Toluca Lake. That's a very fucking cool backstory too. Um, do I like that backstory more than George Rosten? I guess I do, because with Sharon, the backstory is concrete. It's something that we'd have. While with George Rosten, his backstory is up for imagination. Um, her ghost isn't very memorable because she's so weak, but I'm gonna put her above George since her backstory is so interesting and also so eerie. Like going trespassing into a cult's property, finding your family's graves in their graveyard, and then getting killed on your way back. That's messed up. Next up is Toby Archibald. This is the final boss of the cult, at least before Vincent reformed it in Silent Hill 3. Toby is a pedophile. He's a garbage human being, a very corrupt drug dealer, and he's fun using all the sorts of creep uh, activities to fund the the holy the is it the Holy Woman sect? Yeah, yeah, because he was the only one left after both Jimmy and George died, and Dahlia had died long ago. And yet this monster got to become a celebrity in Silent Hill because of his contributions, and that's so messed up that I can't help but like the darkness of that story. Also, he got killed by getting pushed off a cliff. And if you look at his model, the back of his head is completely cracked open, and there's just blood pooling over his hair. That's such a very gnarly detail. I'm gonna put him above Peter because of how more involved his backstory is. Though I'd argue he's not as emblematic or iconic as a ghost. Alright, we are done with the victims. So now we're moving into the South Asheville Heights tenants. We start with the gun guy, the all American gun guy. He collects replicas of guns, but he modified one of them anyways to actually fire bullets. And because the neighbor's cat gave him allergies, he just went and killed him. There's not much else to him. I don't know. I mean, he should burn in hell, but he does make me feel hatred intentionally. I'm gonna put him in D tier. He's just there to make me mad. Oh yes, there's some of them. For example, Silent Hill 1 cast. I gave them separate entries for their Origins counterparts. Um, Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 2 Remake are also separate. And yeah, that'd be it. Of course, and the movie counterparts are their own characters as well. Next up is the cat lady. She just seems like a nice person, but she's clearly not all well mentally, especially after the neighbor killed her cat. Uh, she was very creepy when she stole a man's clothes to wrap her cat in, but I'm more empathetic towards her than this guy's allergies. Um, I'm gonna put them in C tier because finding the cat is still a very disturbing moment, both in her apartment and in your fridge. Also, fun fact, her cat in the fridge is actually modeled. It's not very detailed, but it's modeled. It kind of looks like a stone sculpture because of the lack of detail, but it's still there. Um, this is the music guy, the music enthusiast, with a who wears a Red Hot Chili Peppers T-shirt. He has fun. You can see him through the window having fun. He and the painter says it. He listens to good music. Also, his apartment is very cool, with the sound equipment built into the walls. Um, I'm gonna put him in A tier just because his apartment is cool. This is the painter himself. Um, he's he's kind of boring. I mean, thanks for the insight onto the rest of the apartments, but we don't know much about him. He's dating Rachel, the nurse from Silent Hill 2. I guess he's a bit here. He's not as cool as the music guy. The alcoholic. Uh, I think he doesn't. He has even less of an impact. But you go through his apartment, and he still has the bloody shirt that he took from Mike. He also has the bug spray in the middle of his alcohol bottles, and he has a very funny bugged line delivery in the Skin Mike cassette. Um, I think he's going next to the painter. Oh, this lady. I think we definitely know about her the least. We know almost the least. We just know she likes to cook, and that's about it. Uh, oh, I want to put her next to the gun guy, but I don't know if I want to put her above because she seems nicer, or below because we know less about her. I'm gonna put her above. I'm sure she'd be nice to Henry if they are told. Here is the gamer and weightlifter. He collects old games like Atari games, and also has a lot of weights in his apartment. He recorded Richard beating the shit out of Mike for some reason. He doesn't really do much outside of that. But I guess it's still a nice piece of, the backstory that it gives us. I'm gonna put him below the cat lady. The family. Okay, the family, we can see them through the window. Their kids are always messing around at the windows. There's a very odd detail that in the second visit to the apartment world, the cradle that they have in the living room has a weird faceless baby in it that it doesn't have in the first visit. And that detail always stands out to me when I play it. The apartment is also very memorable with all the scribbling on the walls that even Henry says it makes him feel dizzy. I'm going to put them above the alcoholic. I think that's a good place. I mean that's a good placement. Mike. Mike the stalker. Uh, he seems to be a decent person, but not with women. He has photos of Frank Sunderland in his apartment for some reason. This is weird. Uh, but he's probably one of the most relevant minor apartment characters, since one of his letters is kind of a red herring when you're looking for the fragments of the red paper. Uh, I'm gonna put him above the alcoholic just because he is so involved, but he definitely sucks as a person, especially for Rachel. The nice old couple, uh, pretty much all they say. They're an old couple and they're nice. Indeed, dear. Walter's mother, she kind of seems like a victim to me, at least in the flashbacks and the glimpses we get. It doesn't seem like she's in control of the situation. We never knew her and we never will. Um, and yeah, the whole plot is kind of that we never know her. I I think I want to think that she was a good woman trapped in a bad situation. And just because I want to believe that, I'm putting her on C tier. She still had a huge impact on the plot. Walter's father. This one, we can almost say for sure that he was terrible. He sounds very aggressive towards his wife, even in the screen cap that we show in the flashback. He seems aggressive. He doesn't seem like a good person at all. He was the one that wanted to leave Walter behind. And since we don't know him as a person either, I think uh, but he's more interesting to think about because of that. I mean, you can exactly keep him away out of your mind when you're thinking about Walter's abandonment. Ah, uh, see it here, I think. They're very complicated to rank, those two. Bob, this was Walter's only friend in the wish house. He wanted to play with Walter, but he went beyond the wish house grounds, and Andrew got angry, and then Bob disappeared. He's probably dead. He's a very minor character, but I think it works to set the tone in the forest revisit. he doesn't seem like he had an impact on Walter himself, uh, um, at long. But I think I think he's a C tier. The cop. Okay, there's these two characters that you hear over the radio, and can hear in Eileen's room, or watch through the window outside the subway, and it's the cop and the detective. And I love these two. I love their dialogue. The cop sounds kind of innocent, and he's just excited presenting theories about what happened. Like it's his first day on the job, and the detective replies, "What the hell are you talking about? I don't know Sullivan killed himself," and I love it. The cop is slightly less funny. I think enough to be in B tier funny, but the detective, I find his delivery very funny. I love listening to him. I'm putting those two. Uh, should I put them together? No, no, no. The copy is kind of more contextual funny, while the detective himself is like playing a funny role very seriously. Is that Silent Hill 4? It is. It took me oh it took me an hour. It took me an hour just to do Silent Hill 4. Um, tell you what. Next, we're gonna to let's do these two comics. Um, The Grinning Man and Dead Alive. So next stream can be Origins, which also has many characters. Origins, Hunger, and maybe Homecoming. Okay, so we start with The Grinning Man. The Grinning Man is about a pair of police officers that go to Silent Hill. At the same time, there is a very dangerous serial killer who uses magic and spells, trapping people in there. It's kind of like Walter, but less calm and collected and more psychotic, and with a lot more guns. All right, so this is Officer Robert Tower. He's the protagonist. He's going to retire, but his replacement wants to go to Silent Hill. So Robert is kind of an asshole and tries to set up a prank to scare his replacement from taking the job. He seems like a very lonely man. His wife kinda is just there for him. I don't know why he feels like he's been through many disappearances in Silent Hill, so he's jaded about it. But he's easily the most forgettable. No, not easily. I think he's tied with the protagonist from Among the Damned as the most forgettable protagonist of the Silent Hill franchise as a whole. I can put him very high up. Um, he is competent. He can handle himself. He can save people, but he's not very interesting as of himself. I'm going to put him in C tier. Uh, he's not forgettable or confusing or nothing enough like other characters I have here from the comics, but he is definitely not a very memorable protagonist. He does he does handle himself well though. Next up is the Grinning Man himself, uh, a perpetually grinning serial killer using magic to trap his victims. He brings them to Silent Hill as of late, usually just assaults whoever he finds on the road. And I don't know, he could be kind of cool, but we don't really see him enough in his own comic. And when we do, he's kind of very unidimensional. He makes for kind of a fun intro. I mean, he's not boring to see or watch. He's just all style and no substance. I think he's going with Robert Tower here. This is Officer Mayberry. This is the new recruit for the police force that's going to replace Robert Tower. Now, this guy is uh, very enthusiastic about Silent Hill, has heard all about it, and wants to go. So that's why Robert and the other cops plan to prank him. But when they roll into Silent Hill, it turns out that they roll into the bad Silent Hill. So they get trapped until they get rid of the Grinning Man. So Mayberry is kind of all talk, all bark, no bite, with about how much he knows about Silent Hill. He is kind of like a fanboy, very obsessed. He doesn't come across as creepy like Jasper though, um, and he definitely isn't as good in combat as Robert. He's kind of the load of the team. I'm putting him in D tier. What's next? These are the Grinning Man's victims. I put them in as a collective because they don't have enough presence individually. They have these marks on their foreheads which trap them in Silent Hill. They're in a state between, they're in a similar to undead state. Um, they're still very much conscious, and of course they try to escape, but they can't until the Grinning Man dies. They don't do much, but they seem they're written believably enough, I'd say. Definitely, I feel more sympathetic towards them than the cheerleaders from Painted Black. I think they're going in D tier with may vary. Um, the final character from The Grinning Man is Robert Tower's wife. She's very minor, she barely appears, doesn't even seem to have much of an impact on Robert's character either. Doesn't do much on her own. I guess this is today's entry in Don't Care About Them. That's all. Alright, that's The Grinning Man done. Next up is Dead Alive, which is the epic conclusion to the first comic saga. Alright, this is Kenneth Carter. He's a semi successful actor. He doesn't know his past, like who are his parents are. And then one night, he gets transported into Silent Hill out of nowhere. And of course, there's a reason, uh, but he doesn't know it for a while. Kenneth, he's fairly, I think he's fairly believable as a protagonist. He handles things rationally enough. He's not exactly charismatic, but he feels like a real person. Um, he doesn't understand why Silent Hill called to him, but if you've read the previous comics, which you should have if you're reading this, you'll recognize that in his apartment he has the paintings from Ike Isaacs from Painted Black. So he's been drawn to Silent Hill for a while now. He just doesn't know it. Kenneth, I think, is a good protagonist. He's kind of a weird choice, an actor for the big finale of the comic saga, but even though his backstory is kind of weird, I think he plays it seriously enough to kind of convince me. This is Connie Mills. She's just a regular woman. If I remember correctly, she was Kenneth's ex, and she's also having a few ambitions of Silent Hill during her daily life until she gets transported to Silent Hill as well. And her purpose is to be the new vessel for Samael. So Kenneth's mission is kind of to rescue her. Connie herself doesn't get to have much agency. Spoiler alert, Kenneth fails initially, and Connie gets possessed by Samael halfway through. I don't think she's as compelling or fun. She spends most of her screen time confused, but I'd say she does feel like a believable character. Hmm. I guess I'll put her for now at least above Robert Tower. Alright, this is Jessica Aldrich. This is Kenneth Carter's current um, girlfriend. She doesn't last much in the comic because Kenneth sees her transform into a monster and kills her. Jessica, I don't remember her well. I I think she was fairly nice to Kenneth, but I get the feeling there was something a bit maybe immoral about her. I don't recall what. Um, Either way, she's still pretty. She's an inciting incident for Dead Alive, but herself she doesn't ultimately end up having much of a role. So I'm putting her in low C tier. Samael, Samael herself in this comic gets summoned into Connie Mills' body. She's pretty much immortal, doesn't really care about earthly things. She's not very violent. She's just kinda going along. She obviously craves full control of everything. I like that she keeps her eyes perpetually closed. I like that detail. Uh, I mean, it's Samael, it's a demon, doesn't have much defining characteristics, but I think it's played decently. It's not bad. I don't think it's. I don't think it's particularly bad. I'm gonna put her along Kenneth. Oh, this character. This is the part where Dead Alive gets weird. This is Kenneth's father. Uh, they call him Bones Reynolds because when Kenneth first sees him as an apparition, he manifests from his own bones. He's a very, starting with the good, he's a good fatherly figure, especially to Kenneth after so long of him being an orphan. Now the weird part, and this is the weird part that I still don't know why it's there or how it works at all. But Bones Reynolds, this old guy, um, say differently. Kenneth, this Hollywood actor, is part monster. He's part Silent Hill monster. That means that his father, he did have sex with a Silent Hill monster. Now, the way they show it is that this monster was a very cognizant, female presenting monster, like almost human in mind. It's still really fucking weird. His father says that it was genuine love, but it's still weird to have as a plot point. Uh, and I don't know if that should knock him down to like eat her for how fucking weird it is, or bring him up. I mean, he does seem like a very nice man. I guess he doesn't have. I'm gonna put him above Connie Mills, but I think I'll have to rearrange a lot when I finish this within their own tiers because I don't know what to do about this man. Like this plot point comes so out of nowhere. And the final is these two minor characters from the inside. These are the detectives that are investigating the murder of Jessica Aldrich. They're decently. They appear in a few scenes throughout the comic, trying to follow Kenneth, and by the end, they're Samael. I think it was Samael, or it was Lauren from here, who gives him a vision threatening to rewrite uh, the previous night, the previous night's events, to make it so that Kenneth never went to Silent Hill actually, and instead just killed everyone, including the detectives himself. Uh, that ends up not happening, but it gives us this small glimpse at the deaths of the detectives at the hands of a monster, which it turns out to be Kenneth in that vision, and that was a cool framing. They don't have much of an impact. They're kind of on their own adventure, but they're recognizable enough that when you see them, you kind of follow along, and they're not intrusive. I think they're still in D tier, but I thought of them to be fine side characters. All right, that's the original comic saga finished. The next comic saga is the Hunger comic, which is a bit odd in that it's kind of in the same continuity, but also not. It's a bit weird. It does have some fun ideas. I'll give it that. Um, 1 hour and a half. Can I squeeze in Origins? Screw it. I can. I can. Of course I can. Uh, okay, so now that we had that interlude with comics, we're moving on to the next main game. That is Silent Hill Origins slash Silent Hill Zero. Starting with Travis Grady, Fists of Steel, Travis. Now, the big elephant in the room with Travis is whether you consider him being a serial killer canon or not, because it completely changes what kind of character this is. It can make him more cliche, or it can make him more boring, or it can make him more interesting, but it changes everything. Now, I don't think. Uh, it's pretty well implied, but I've seen that the possibility that one could take it as Kaufman trying to manipulate him into thinking that he is one. It's still kind of a reach, but it's congruent. Um, had a difficult childhood, uh, lost his parents very young. Then, who knows? Maybe he became a serial killer, maybe not. And then we get to present day. It's said that he has bad sleep, he's very lonely. Yeah, no, a ver, no, next stream, is it would be oof, there's a lot of Homecoming. But yeah, if there's time, it could have Shattered Memories in it. Oh, Travis, definitely, definitely a good writer. Travis, in game, he's very altruistic. Like, regardless if he's a serial killer, he risks his life to save a child from a burning house. And then kind of goes along for the ride. It looks like he at first wants to dig deeper, but then pulls out at the very last second when it's already too late to get out. He's very stoic, doesn't really react. It's it's hard not to think about uh, the first version of Origins, which had Travis be kind of a quipper. It was weird. Travis, at least in game, is a good person, but he has a limit to how altruistic he can be before he starts worrying about himself. Which, fine, that's that's fair. Hmm. I'm gonna take him for his potential, the potential of what his backstory might be, plus considering what he is like. And I'm going to put him in a mid A. Alessa in Origins. This is not a good depiction of Alessa. She seems too calculated. I wouldn't say manipulative. She doesn't manipulate Travis, but she's pushy. It really leans too hard into the vengeful child trope, which doesn't fit Alessa. Does she do anything cool? She's chill at the end of the game. She says bye to Travis in the review mirror. Uh, she does handle the Floros pretty well. I don't know what else positive to say about her. Uh, I guess she's going in D tier. I don't think she's handled very well either as Alessa, Alessa the franchise character, or as Alessa as Origin's own character. She just doesn't seem to really feel like a character. Dahlia, meanwhile, Dahlia is a lot younger here. She's more of like she's playing more into the weird neighbor type since the Dahlia we met in Silent Hill 1 was almost 70% an act. This does feel like a realistic what would Dahlia be in in other circumstances when not trying to trick Harry Mason. Dahlia, she has very few scenes, and that's not great. Uh, we know she's terrible still. She was allowing Alessa to get burnt in the house. And then it's in Cedar Grove, meeting Kaufman, and she bumps into Travis and tells him to leave. And and she messes up the entire plan because she tells Travis that Alessa is with those who care for her. Travis didn't know she was still alive, and she messed up. That is admittedly kind of funny because, yeah, that is kind of in character. How she would mess up something like that. I think her scene after assembling the flowers, I think that scene is alright. Dahlia is alright in that scene. There's one point where they really didn't get Dahlia, and it's her relationship with Kaufman, who's next. Um, Dahlia is supposed to be the authority in the cult, but in the cutscenes where they interact, it's Kaufman who is guiding Dahlia along, and that's completely out of place. I'm gonna put her in C tier because she's still very entertaining to watch and is still around her characterization. Kaufman, however, he's an entirely different character. I mean, they added that he's sleeping with Lisa, which, alright, he's a bad guy, but I'm not sure that had to be added. But let's say it's appropriate. Let's say that. Let's say it's appropriate for him. He's still not very much. In Silent Hill 1, he had a lot of power because he was the hospital's director and he could control a lot of things. Here, he is not yet part of the hospital board. Um, he now is a very knowledgeable man about the cult, which he was not in Silent Hill 1. Mm, he's supposed to be like the main villain of Origins, but do we meet him? We meet him thrice at the hospital elevator, where he does play it well. He does play it cool, like how maybe how Silent Hill 1 Kaufman could have done. And then in the motel, where he's with Lisa, I'm not sure if that's a good Kaufman there, but it's following along his characterization in this game, so it's still congruent. And then at the very end, in the ritual room, where he's in complete control of the ritual. Oh, I didn't mention, in the last cutscene, when everything is falling apart in the temple, Dahlia runs away first from the ritual room, and the game kinda doesn't care. It, you can barely even see her running away because it's focused on Kaufman. What else? Kaufman, his CGI model is weird. It looks like G-Man. And his character design in general doesn't look at all like the Silent Hill 1 counterpart. Like the others take a bit of liberty, but they still look like them. Does he work as an antagonist within Origins though? Does he? I'm not sure. He. It's that the characters show up so little. We do hear a lot from him in notes, so I guess he does have that going for him. I guess C minus, putting him below Dahlia, but he's very close to being on D tier just because of how inconsistent it is. I don't know what to even say about Lisa. Lisa in this game, I I subscribe to the idea that we only see Lisa sober in the first meeting, and that in the future encounters she's on something on PTV. Uh, we know that we know that the Lisa in Silent Hill 1 was not a real Lisa, so we kind of have to separate that from however she's depicted elsewhere, as much as different as it can be. But this Lisa, she doesn't seem to do much either. In Cedar Grove, she has no reason to know Travis is the son of the woman inside the solitary confinement. Her appearances in Cedar Grove and the theater are very off, but I think she's closer in tone, closer to a consistent tone than Alessa is. Helen Grady, Travis's mother, possibly a House of Leaves reference. Very cool monster design. She's suspended in a gibbet. Those cages that they used to hang prisoners in, so they died of hunger or got pecked on by birds until they died. And so it's a fitting as a punishment for what she did. A memorable voice, I think. It's very memorable. Uh, Besides being cool, it's also a very creepy monster design. Helen, as a person, she doesn't seem to mean ill, but she clearly doesn't know the boundaries between real and fake. Tried to kill Travis, and either way, if she was right or wrong, she eventually did lose her mind in the sanatorium, to the point that she couldn't even recognize uh, her husband. It's tragic. I'm putting her in B tier, or could I bump her up to A tier? Could I bump Helen up to A tier for the monster design? Because she's a B in a story. I really do like her design a lot. I'm putting her in A tier. Richard Grady. Um, I think he's going to be close to Helen. I kind of feel very similarly about them. Richard, as a person, very tragic. You hate to see someone. It's kind of like an, I wouldn't say an evolution of James. I don't think it's particularly something to evolve, but a side track to it. Richard did his best, tried to find solace in cheap, what do you say, pleasures. He did try a lot to reach Helen, and he couldn't. Oh, yeah, his voice acting also got me. The scene in the scene itself is very well framed. I also like the whole subplot with the lucky quarter and being the coin that Travis was going to return to him after playing. His monster design, Sad Daddy is one of the few monster designs in the series to actually make me nauseous. I can't tell exactly why, but there's something about it that makes me gag a little. I like that his torso is entirely hollow. Um, the tentacles that act as ropes could have used a little more work into animation, but I get the concept. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna put him in A tier. I don't like his design as much as Helen, but it's still very good. Butcher. This poor man. Uh, Starting with the negatives because I have some um, unique positives. Negatives, of course, uh, the design gets a little too close to Pyramid Head, shows up too little, although he kind of makes his presence known throughout the game, but it could have been, it could have been, it could have used at least one more encounter in a cutscene. I think that would have helped. I do like the other off-screen encounters that we hear or see after he already kills someone. Uh, the boss fight is not very good. The kitchen should have been a good fight, so I'm not sure why it didn't work. I'm not a game designer, so I can't say. But on the positive, the half helmet, I like it. I like the idea of taking the classic pyramid helmet and then trying like a half wielding mask thing. I like that. I also like that he still has uh, human features, but they're so distorted that you can barely even see anything. I like that his ear is just a hole in the side of his head, like something drilled into it. I like those parts of his design. I like the how his killing method is kind of a slow slice compared to Pyramid Head's uh, almost unbalanced swing. I do think he has a little bit more personality than it looks like at first glance. But also, what I do have about the Butcher is my my dear headcanon that I don't really see talked about much. In, the, in oh, no, I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna put Butcher here for now in A tier, and we're gonna talk about it with this minor character, Bill Ortega. So, Bill Ortega is the costume designer for the Tempest play in Arto Theater. And of course, his first note is that he found out that Silent Hill is on hallowed ground, so he thinks that they're gonna be blessed. So what happens? What does that imply? That implies that he has been doing some shallow research. We see some of his designs, like for Caliban, a buffalo spirit, and we see in his notes that he's using some ideas from native folklore mm, special to the area. It's around those sketches that we see his note that he's been dreaming about the butcher, and he mentions he looks just like, quote unquote, the executioner. Oh, I can pronounce that word. That's hard. Execute. Oh, wow. Do you know what the guy who executes people? You know, I can't pronounce that word. And that implies to me that he, in his research for customs and history of the area to put into his designs, he came across the old execu- executors of the Luca prison, and having seen that design, he kinda morphed in his dreams into the butcher. Very close design, but he has some distinct differences. So he continues researching, and as that note mentioned, he lives in a motel. In Riverside Motel, in room 503, we find a, a room covered in monster design sketches. And of course, out of context, that just looks like an Easter egg room. Like, oh look, there's a pyramid head in that corner. There's the butcher in this other paper. There's a bit of, I don't know, straight jackets in this one. It just look without context. It looks like a gallery of an Easter egg. But with context, we can think that room 503 is Bill Ortega's room, and it's covered in sketches because he's sketching out all of the creatures he's been dreaming about that are heavily influenced by the things that he's been researching for the play. So what I think happens here is that In that room, there is a note on the cult's ritual. I think he, of doing his research, falls down the rabbit hole and finds out about the ritual and its cruelty. I think that connection of a costume designer researching a bit too much for the play, coming across the prison executors, um, he manifests the butcher from a mix between that and the cruelty he reads about, because he clearly is invested in that last note. I think Bill Ortega, the costume designer, is very much the reason why the butcher looks the way he does. I think it's practically a design that came to him in a dream and eventually manifested into reality, just like Caliban or, or the Ariels. And that was my rant about Bill Ortega, my very important man. I think about him every time I play Origins. And the Butcher. Next up, well, that took a bit. Um, Next up is the Alchemilla board. These are the board of directors of Alchemilla Hospital, at least at the time of Origins. These are terrible people. They're saving money for the party by cutting cutting services in the hospital. They have the third floor in renovations, and it doesn't look like it's getting any finished anytime soon. Uh, they're kind of frat bro about trainee nurses, which would include Lisa, and also tell the staff to not admit patients unless they're dying at the doorstep. So they're almost so comically evil that it's funny, but they just suck. It sucks so much. Dr. Harris, potentially a reference to Thomas Harris, writer of Silence of the Lambs. Dr. Harris was the doctor that was taking care of Helen Grady at Cedar Grove. He seems like a very honest man. I do get the impression that he genuinely cares about his patients, even though there's members of his staff that are act very insultingly towards them. But Dr. Harris just seems very professional, uh, someone who cares. I'm putting him in A tier because Silent Hill, Silent Hill hospitals would be in so much better shape with more doctors like Dr. Harris. Mr. Bryant, this was the neighbor of the Grady's. He was a neighbor that called the police on Helen Grady when she tried to kill Travis. So mm, he had a small role, but did well. Either C or D. I'm gonna put him in a high D. I think he was a he must be a decent neighbor, especially when uh, so many cases of domestic abuse go through when while neighbors know and do nothing. Tony, Tony, this is the actor playing Prospero in The Tempest at Orto Theatre. Uh, Tony seems like a decent stage actor. We don't know much about him as a person, but he gets mentally attacked by Alessa because of the character that he plays. Prospero is a bit of an over controlling father in the play, and of course, Tony is playing a scene where something like that happens, and Alessa presumably sees a bit of Dahlia in the character, so she gives Tony a nosebleed. A very minor character, but I think he serves a bit of world building and tying the Tempest to the rest of the game. Gonna put him about the Alchemy Award. Next up is the Tempest director. This I'm gonna put him already in E. He isn't much of a character, but he has a what's it called? A candle holder with the design of Heaven's Knight in his desk, and that's a cool detail. That's a cool detail to make me care about you enough to not put you in don't care about them. Also, he has some books on his desk about, the stuff, the town history and such. This actress, I think she's actually going in don't care about them. No, I kinda, uh, she was nice. I'll give her that. She was nice when Tony had to stop the play. Really minor character, just had to give her a place. She was playing, I don't know, I don't remember the name of Prospero's daughter in The Tempest, but she was playing that role. And finally, for tonight, the motel manager of Riverside Motel. Now, I, I have a bit of complex feelings about this guy because, on one hand, we know that employees are using the maintenance, what's it called? Codewalk? Something? To spy and record and take pictures of people using the motel's rooms. And he should know about it. If he's not in it, then and he doesn't know, then he's still incompetent. But also, there's one note by him about finding Travis the morning after Richard hanged himself. And he seems very human. Uh, that probably doesn't mean much, but the way he talks about encountering Travis there, he feels like it feels very raw. He feels emotional about it, and it kind of makes me like the guy a bit more. It's something like no child should have to go through that. It's still a very minor character, but I'm gonna put it in C tier because just because of that note that makes me feel something about him, and that's Silent Hill Origins done. So today, today we did Silent Hill 4, which took 1 hour to complete. So many characters. Then I moved on to the Grinning Man comic, and then into the Dead Alive comic. which finished that first saga of the comic universe, and now Origins is complete. Tomorrow or whenever I get to the next one, it might be earlier than I started today. I'm gonna be tackling Homecoming. Um, then I'm gonna tackle the Hunger comic, which was released for the PSP, and then Shattered Memories. I plan to do at least those, and if I still have time after that, mm, I could do. Oh, the second movie has a little characters. Something minor but interesting. Shattered Memories, that would leave me not Ampur. No, I don't want to do Ampur yet. When should I do Ascension? Because I have a lot to say with that. Hmm. Okay, Homecoming, new plan. Homecoming, Hunger, Sinner's Reward, and Shattered Memories. That should be good. Just a reminder, I updated this tier list before doing this. Now it's up to 412 characters because I added PT characters that I had forgotten and I thought I had added. I also added several minor characters from Shattered Memories. That is, many of the phone numbers and text messages that you get. I also added the player cameo characters from Ascension, which are many, and Eva Johansson, also from Ascension, who I somehow missed, because which is weird because I kind of really like that character. And that's when I separated the Origins renditions of Silent Hill characters from their Silent Hill 1 counterparts uh, upon feedback, and also separated Young and Cunningham, who is here, from her adult self. Characters that were pretty much considered to be a separate character to their other entry. Alright, and that should be good for today. Today lasted 2 hours. Not bad since I started earlier than usual. I will be seeing you next time with Homecoming characters. See you all.